Anybody else sad it's our last week of blocks? Hey, this is Carrie with Canary Quilts, and this is week 15 of the Moda Midnight Moon Quilt Along. I think it's taken me 15 weeks to actually get that title out correctly. I think what I'm gonna do is, I've been sharing Halloween things with you, but I think I'm gonna wait till we put our quilt together and I'll do like a little trunk show of all my Halloween quilts. I have quite a few. It won't be very long, but it'll show you how many I have, and it's fun to look at, and I like looking at other people's quilts, and I have to imagine you're probably the same. When we put this quilt together, this will be the biggest Halloween quilt I think that I've done. Last year I did a quilt along, but I don't think it's going to be as big as this. Week 15, and I really like these blocks. They turned out really cool. We've got the Rocky Mountain block and we've got the Weathervane block, and I kind of switched up the fabrics from what she had. Obviously the background I did differently. I did 2 grays and 2 oranges here, and then over here I put orange in the corner, and then I did a dark gingham in the middle there. These are very quick to put together. They aren't hard at all, which is great. Most of these blocks haven't been hard. Some of them have been tedious, but for the most part they haven't been too hard. A lot of half square triangles in this, and in looking ahead in the trimming there's a lot of half square triangles there too. So for this last week I'm just gonna kind of walk you through these blocks, and we'll get through to the end, have a little cry that it's our last block, and then next week we'll start trimming, and then it looks like we have another bonus block coming up in a couple weeks. So I don't know what that's gonna be. It says it can go in your quilt, or it can be your quilt label. So that'll be interesting to see what that's gonna be. So let's get started. Yay and sad at the same time. But if you're new here and you want to follow along, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and you get notified every time I put up more of this, and you can see me when I complete it. Do other things that I have on the channel. I do have back here, I have another quilt along. This is called Boo Crew, and we're halfway through that. This is the bonus block, the last bonus block from Moda's Midnight Moon Quilt Along. So, you know, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we'll do a lot of fun things together. So let's get started. Alright, here we are on our last week of making blocks for the Moda Midnight Moon Quilt Along. It's week 15. Wow, 15 weeks. But anyway, we are going to be doing this Rocky Mountain block and this Weathervane block. I am going to start with the Rocky Mountain block. I've already got my medium size and my small size done, and I've got everything cut out for my large size. So I went with the polka dot background, and I went with a few different colors. Like this one has orange or black and gray here, and I went with gray. I went with gray on these edges and orange on this edge, and then the polka dot background. Okay, so to get started, we are going to take our A piece and our D piece, and we're going to make 10 half square triangle blocks out of these. So I'm going to set my pieces aside, and we've done this many times before. If you've been doing this with me, we will take our background piece and we're going to mark it on the diagonal. We have 5 of these, and we have 5 of our colors here, 1 of each color, so that when we get done we'll have 2 half square triangle blocks to make 10 blocks. So take your first color, lay your piece A with the diagonal on it, and we are going to sew 1/4 of an inch from this line on both sides. So then that will yield 2 of these blocks. So we're going to do that on all of these, and then we're going to come back and we're going to cut on the line, and we're going to iron towards our color. So I forgot to show you that I cut on the line right here. And that gives us 2 pieces here. So now we're going to take it over to our ironing board and we're going to iron towards the color, not towards the background. And when we get done ironing, we will have 10 of these. Okay, so now that we have these ironed towards the color, we are going to trim them up to 2 3/8 of an inch. And I use my diagonal line here, line it up with the seam, line it up with 2 3/8, and then trim it up. There probably isn't going to be much trimming on these, but you can get those tails off. We'll have nice square pieces. Okay, I've got my squares done, and I've got them all squared up. I separated them by color, and I'll show you why I did that later. But anyway, we're going to do our center square here. We're going to do that piece, which is pretty simple. We need B, E, and F for that. And we're going to take our short F's, and we're going to sew them onto each side of this centerpiece B, and we're going to iron towards the dark colors. And then once that's done, then we will put these on top and iron towards this dark color, and then we'll have our square for the center. So let's get started doing that. Okay, there we go. I've got these 2 short end pieces on, and it's ironed towards these pieces. Now we're going to put our long strips on, and once we have these sewn on, we are going to iron towards that dark strip. Alright, there we go. I got my center done, and these are ironed towards the dark strips. It's pretty easy to put together. So now we can lay our block out, and we're going to take our final C piece, which is this background patch, and these are going to go in the top right and the bottom left. Our black, at least my black candy corn, is going to go in the top left and the bottom right. So I'm going to keep my grays and oranges on one side. Let's put them on this side. And you want your pieces here, whoops, I want them to be an opposite. Just like these are an opposite, these are going to be an opposite on the row, on opposite rows, if you get what I mean. And then same here with my gray on the same side. And the way I look at it is you want your seams to all be going in the same direction here. So now we're going to take our oranges and do the same thing, and we want our seams to be going in the same direction. So that's how that's going to be laid out. We want down here, and we want this opposite, and our seams are all going in the same direction. So that's how it's going to be laid out. So the way we're going to put this together is we're going to put these 2, in my case, grays. We're going to sew these together, and we are going to iron towards the dark seam, which would be my candy corn. And then we're going to attach these units to the center unit and have one big area here in the middle. And then we're going to put our top and bottom rows together. But first, let's get these put together. So they're going to go together like that. And we want to iron what I'm calling the dark seam. So we want to iron towards the colored half triangle. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but that's how I view it, so I can remember. Okay, these are going to go back like that. And now we're going to attach these to the centerpiece, and there's no seams to line up, so we're just going to line up end to end and pin in the middle. And then we are ironing towards the center block. Let's iron towards that center block. Attach the other one exactly the same way. Okay, there's our center unit. So we can start assembling our rows. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two pieces and put them together. And then we have the same thing down here, and I'm going to put these together. And when we get done, we're going to sew towards that corner, or black, in my case, the black candy corn piece. So let's iron towards the dark seam. Oh, we got these done. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put this third half square triangle block on. Again, we're going to iron towards this dark half square triangle. Put this back. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to add this solid patch. But what we are going to be ironing towards that solid patch, which is not the same direction as the rest of the seams. And that is so our seams will nest right here. That's why we're doing that. So sew this on and iron towards this solid patch. So don't forget to iron towards the solid patch so that our seams will nest. Okay, a recap here. These seams are ironed towards the dark half square triangle piece. This one's ironed towards the patch. Same thing down here. Iron this way and then this way. And that makes it so that when we put this on top, our two seams that we put together will be nested. It's probably hard to see, but they will butt right up against each other. And then there's really no seams to nest after that, just line everything up. And we are going to be ironing towards this center section. There we go. First row's on, and we're going to iron towards that center section. And you can see how nice these points ended up right there because of nesting our seams. So this is going to be exactly the same, except I ironed that in the wrong way, so I'm just going to flip it. Sometimes you just pull doofus moves. I do it all the time. Okay, get this sewn on and we're going to iron towards the center section. Now that's a cool looking block. I really like that block. Not too hard to put together, looks cool. I like the colors. I went a little bit different than what she did, but hey, it's my quilt. And I've seen a couple of you who are doing this and you're not even using these fabrics and your blocks are beautiful. So yeah, there you go. There's all three of them. Second to last block done. So let's go on to our last block of the Midnight Moda Moon Quilt Along, which is called Weathervane, which is a cool name for a block, I think. I like it. Okay, here we are on our last Moda's Midnight Moon Quilt Along block, the Weathervane. It's kind of sad. I really enjoyed doing this. We still have a lot to do, but it's the last block. So we do have another bonus block coming up in a couple weeks, so that's going to be fun. But anyway, let's get started with our Weathervane. I've got my medium and my small done here. I went with a little bit different colors. I like the orange and the black together. And then I haven't used much of the white candy cane, so I decided to use that in the center. And again, I went with the polka dot background. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to build out these corners right here. So we're going to start with pieces A and E. And I also took my pieces A and B and I marked them on the diagonal because we will have to do that in this pattern. So I've done that already. So let's push these aside. We're going to take A and E, and there's only 2 of these each. And we're going to get 4 half square triangle blocks. So we're doing this block right here. So right sides together, just like in the last one. Sew 1/4 inch on both sides of this line, trim on the line, and then iron towards what in my case would be the orange fabric. Okay, so trim on that line. So we end up with 4 pieces. And we are going to iron towards the dark, which in my case is the orange. Once they're ironed, we want to make sure that they are 1 3/4 inch squares, and if need be, trim it up. Okay, there's my half square triangles trimmed up. So the next thing we're going to do is build this piece right here. It's part of our corner. So we need our B, our B and our F. So we have 4 F pieces here. So we're going to need 4 Bs. Put that B back on there so I don't lose track. And I have marked these on the diagonal. And this one we are going to put our diagonal on our piece so it goes from the top left to the bottom right. And we are going to sew on the line. And then we're going to trim 1/4 inch away from our seam, and then we're going to iron towards the dark, in my case, which is the orange. And you will see why we're doing that later when we're putting our block together. Okay, so this one we are going to trim 1/4 inch away from our seam. So I'm going to put my 1/4 inch mark on that seam and then trim it. And remember, these pieces we are ironing towards the dark, or away from that corner. And that's so we can have a nested seam later. Okay, so we can start putting our corner together now. So we are going to have the section we just did, our half square triangle, and a C unit. So what we're going to do is put our C and our half square triangle together, sew 1/4 inch, and iron towards this solid patch here. So we're going to iron towards that solid patch. And now we can put these two together, and we're going to iron towards the strip. And there's no seams to match here. So iron towards that strip. So there's one of our corners. Now we'll do the other 3 and all 4 corners will be done. So there's our 4 corners all done, and that would actually be kind of a cool block in itself. I like that. Huh. But anyway, I'm going to set these aside, and we're going to do this block section, which is going to take the D and the B pieces. And these are going to go together like a flying block, I guess. A faux flying block. A faux flying geese. You can take one of your D's and one of your B's, and you're going to put a B in the left-hand corner, so that your diagonal is cutting that corner off. And we're going to do like we just did, where we sew on that line, trim 1/4 inch, and we are going to actually iron towards the corner this time. So we'll do that for all 4 of these pieces. Okay, we got the corner on, sewn on our faux flying goose, and I'm going to put my 1/4 inch on my seam and trim 1/4 inch away from it. And then we're going to iron towards that white corner. And iron towards that white corner. So just like on a flying geese block, we are going to put our other B on the right corner, and it's going to overlap our other piece there, and we're going to do exactly the same thing. Sew on the line, trim 1/4 inch from our seam, and iron towards the white piece. And then we will have all 4 of our faux flying goose blocks done. Got my faux flying goose blocks done. Now we're ready to lay it out. So take your G, which is the last piece we have. We'll put that in the center. We're going to put our faux flying goose blocks centered around it, and then our corner blocks. And now we have a 9 patch. And our irons, the way we're going to iron our seams are always towards the faux flying goose. So put your rows together and always iron towards the faux flying goose, and you will have nested seams. And when you're putting these together, this is where, when we iron towards the orange here, where we'll have a nested seam is on those 2 seams right there. So nest those, and you can pin it and pin the side you're gonna sew. This is pretty simple. And then down here, nest those seams. Even though it's a diagonal, it can be nested. And sew or iron towards the faux flying goose. Get our pieces lined up here again. Put your other corner on and nest those seams, even though they're a diagonal. And again, iron towards the faux flying goose. Get our pieces lined up here again. Put your other corner on and nest those seams, even though they're a diagonal. And again, iron towards the faux flying goose. Okay, got our rows done with all our seams ironed towards the faux flying goose, or in my case, this black fabric. So now we can put these together, and the first thing we'll do is nest these seams. And you want to nest these diagonal seams also. And then we are going to be ironing towards the center row right here. Iron towards that center row. Now we can add on the last row, doing the same thing, lining up these seams and these seams. There we go. There is our last Weathervane block. That is a cool looking block. I really like the colors I chose. I like the black and orange next to each other. It looks really nice. So yeah, that's it. There we go. We got my medium, my small, and my large. That's our last block, and like I said, it's kind of sad, but it's been a lot of fun. Stick with me with all the trimmings. And when I talk about trimmings, I am talking about like these right here to put around the small and medium blocks. So there's going to be a lot of this going along or happening, which is going to be fun. Looks like a lot of half square triangle blocks. There's some flying geese. There's some squares. So that's what we're going to be doing, is from now on we'll be doing all these little trimmings for our medium and small blocks. So if you've been following along with me, I really appreciate it. I hope you've been having fun. I've been having a lot of fun doing this. I look forward to it every week, and I still am. I will see you next week for the start of our trimming. But if you want to follow along, if this is your first video and you want to follow along, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and you'll get notified when I put up my next one. And I've got my a link to all my other videos down below if you want to watch those, the first 16 weeks. And the bonus blocks are free if you want to find those and do those. I really appreciate you following along with me, and I really appreciate you watching this video, and thank you very much.